I've just finished reading this wonderful book here. Yeah, Bret Hart, Hitman. It's called it. I think in America and Canada, it's called Bret Hitman Hart, My Real Life in the Cartoon World of Wrestling. Something like that. Yeah, big book. It's about like 550 odd pages. But I can honestly say that is a very good thing. And it's just, for me, it's like definitive wrestling book. Also, it helps that like Bret the Hitman Hart was one of my favourite ever wrestlers, if not the favourite, while growing up, and maybe to this day even. I was so privileged that the only WWF show I went to was one in Birmingham in 1996 after the Survivor Series, and I was so privileged to see Bret the Hitman Hart wrestle live against Mick Foley as Mankind, and just to see that match live was excellent, and that match even got a little mention in this book. But yeah, I'd say this is the definitive wrestling book. You really feel like you're going on a journey with Bret the Hitman Hart. It starts off with him growing up as part of the Hart family, and of course going into his Stampede days and growing up and touring in Puerto Rico and Japan, and obviously in the WWF covers all of that you ever want to know, and some of his bad times. Of course it goes quite in depth with like the events leading up to the Montreal screw job and that, and it's quite interesting, you know. I could spend a whole video saying my thoughts on that, so I'm not going to bother. But it also has a lot of stuff about his own character defects, like his affairs with other women when he was married and stuff, and also some partial bits of drug taking and that. But I've always respected Bret the Hitman Hart, and I know it's easy for a lot of people to say he has been a bit of a crybaby or whatever. Yeah, as I was saying, a lot of people have gone on to say he's a bit of a crybaby and a whinger or whatever. But to be honest with you, you know, a lot of stuff's happened in this guy's life, and I think from reading this book, he is on his way to being over a lot of this stuff that, like, he was upset about, you know. He had the Montreal screw job and stuff in WCW, his concussion, his stroke, like, years ago. Like, some of this book is quite hard to read, especially all the stuff that goes on between the Hart family, like especially after Owen Hart died and all that. It's like quite hard to read about that family basically falling apart at the seams and just bitching at each other and whatever. But in other bits, there are bits that just really cracked me up funny. Bret Hart was in WCW and he was like watching this match with Scott Hall against someone, and Scott Hall did like this pathetic bump, and then his kid Blade shouts out, "That's pathetic, Razor!" and the whole locker room cracked up laughing. I just thought that was brilliant. And even some of the stuff about his deviances, there's a bit of humour in that as well. But yeah, it's not, to me, this wasn't heavy reading at all. It's about like 550 odd pages. And I'm not really the biggest reader of them all, but I have been like getting into reading books quite rapidly over the past year or two. But yeah, just a brilliant book. Brilliant book. I'd say even if you weren't a fan of Bret Hart, this is definitely worth picking up, because it really goes chronologically through the history of wrestling, especially the boom periods in WWF leading up to the screw job, of course, and some of the decline of WCW, and the way how he handles his relationships with the other wrestlers. There's just a lot of that in there, and just goes into the decline of Dynamite Kid as well, and how he had a lot of things coming to him and stuff. And yeah, it's not all about Bret the Hitman Hart in this book. It's like just basically the story told through his eyes. And I thoroughly recommend it. This is a definitive wrestling book, and I have read a fair few autobiographies, but this is written by him, and it's very worth it. I mean, first of all, the first wrestling book I read was obviously like Mankind Will Have a Nice Day. That was about 10 years ago now. I'm going to reread that book and probably give my thoughts on it again. I love Chris Jericho's book. Terry Funk's book was good, but I think there needed to be more to it. There wasn't enough meat in there for me, and detail. Ric Flair's book was good, but you know, it wasn't totally wrote by him. I thought Eddie Guerrero's book was very good. It seemed very honest, but once again, I don't think that was totally wrote by him as well. The Rock's book was just good for a laugh. You know, because he spoke in character and he spoke about himself, and it just didn't really work. And the WrestleCrap books are good. Jericho's book was very good as well. That was like one of my favourites. But yeah, thoroughly recommend this for any wrestling fan, especially if you're a Bret the Hitman Hart fan. And it makes you understand some things about a lot of the wrestlers. Like his declining relationship with Shawn Michaels as well, you know, and the relationship he had with Vince, and it's just heartwarming to hear about him having fun with Owen Hart and like all his wrestling compadres on the road. It's very good. I recommend this book a lot. Cheers.